And now, from beyond our dimension, this is the JeffMara podcast. Here's Jeff.
My guest is Mas Sajati, expert in human transformation, who after 3 near-death experiences came back alive to share wisdom and remarkable abilities that break through the limitations of psychology and willpower. Mas, thank you for joining me today and welcome.
Jeffrey, thanks for having me.
So Mas, if you don't mind, can we start with your NDEs?
Yes, absolutely. So I've had 3 of them. The last one, the latest one, the most recent was back in March, so not too long ago, less than a year ago. Really a pivotal moment, by the way. So, but we'll start from the beginning. And the importance is that, a lot of people have NDEs. In fact, there's thousands of NDEs, documented NDEs just in the US, but what makes it very different, or what makes it very different for me, is that some individuals, when they have their NDEs, like Anita Murjani, she healed herself from cancer. Other individuals, they have, say, they become like savants, or they can, do arithmetic, mathematics, in their head and so on. So or musical talents and so on. So the gifts come out. And the difference between, or my gift that I got is that I have an ability to look into, say, your master blueprint, or basically I would call it your genetics, and see where things went awry in your life, and then help you replace or help you edit that, say, frequency for you. So that's my gift, and literally that's what I do, with hundreds of thousands of client sessions, high level CEOs and so on, that really haven't, say, figured out what life is really about. They've got the success mechanisms, they've got all the money in the world, for example, or they've, done that spiritual path. Either way, it's like, gosh, I'm still lost. I'm still looking for something. Well, in reality, you're actually looking for yourself, a higher version of who you are. And that's what I do. I help people find the higher version, or that limitless version of who they are. So they become, from a limited sense of who they are to that limitless version that we all seek and that we all know that we have. So that's what near deaths to me are about. So my first one was in my early 20s. And the key points here is that I was literally groomed to have these near-death experiences to, say, escalate myself to higher levels, say, of understanding or consciousness. And I'll talk about that later, or Jeffrey, maybe you can ask me about that later, but I just want to go through the experiences, and then we can talk about, say, the science or the logistics on, say, how this reality works, or how, consciousness works, and how we can, say, evolve to our highest self. So the first near death, again, I was really groomed, when I was younger, before the near deaths, it was about, understanding what life was about. I was that kid that was searching for, what was the meaning of life. I would read, like Albert Einstein, in my teenage years. I would look at, I would read, say, the religions. I don't care what religion it was, or spiritual paths that people have gone to. I was really drawn into that. I wasn't the partier type or anything like that. I would literally listen to other very highly successful individuals and so on, because it's like, oh, they have the key to life. But as I researched more and more, I saw that successful individuals, we were lucky, we came from a good family, a medium or high level income family, and my dad was a doctor, and he'd have high level people with over for dinner, and I go, God, they're successful and all that stuff, but why are they ill? Why do they have all these issues, and why do they have all these personal issues that, say, not so successful people? I thought success would, say, heal them from that, right? So it didn't make sense to me. And then the religions that are out there, I see a lot of great people. There are a lot of fantastic religions out there, but again, the people are like, they're starving. They're starving of the nutrition of, like, healing themselves, or having a different life, and they're sacrificing themselves. So it's like, why is that? So it brought about more questions than was answered, in the religious texts that I read, or spiritual texts that I read. So I was looking for that key equation that, say, Albert Einstein is like, an equation that like solved life, basically. So I was looking so hard that, well, it allowed me to say have a near-death experience. So the near-death experience, I was in I worked at a Target warehouse. 22-year-olds, you know, it was a great college job. I used to unload rail cars and semi-trailers and so on. And the day kind of felt weird even before I got into it. You know, even the few days before, it's just like everything was surreal to me. It's almost like, you know, the universe knew that I was going to have a near death, and the universe does know, by the way, what happens to you even before it happens to you. So everything felt so surreal. And what was going on, I punched it in, and it's like, hey, you got to unload this rail car. I go, okay. And so I started unloading the rail car, and they have these moving walls inside the rail car, that keep the product in place if it's not a full car. This wall was stuck. And me being athletic, as I was, it's like, well, I'll just climb up. And these are like 10, 12 feet high ceilings, I'll just climb up and like start to pull on, the header. That's what they call them, headers. I'll pull on the top part, and then my teammates, you guys pull on the bottom, and then we'll see if we can get it loose. Well, we did get it loose. And these walls, again, they slide in, inside the rail car. They go back and forth again to keep the product in place. Well, they're about a half ton, and they have these ceiling members. So if you can imagine, the walls, the ceiling of a rail car, it's kind of, slanted like this. And then they have these cross members that support. So as this wall gave way, it just slid across these rails. And well, what stopped it was my face and the ceiling member. It's just like I got crushed, like boom, crushed just like this on my jaw. And instantly I got pulled out of my body. And I was like, I was pulled out, and you could feel, and this is the key too, is that I was conscious of what was happening to me. So I got pulled out. I literally felt myself like coming out of myself. And then I turned around and I looked at myself, and I was like floating further and further and further away from my body. And I'm going, wow, that's really strange. It's like, what am I doing over here if my body's over there? And this is again, most people don't have, say, that consciousness when they die. They just observe. But I was observing what I was observing, which is really important. So I saw, it's like, well, gosh, again, it's like, what am I doing here? And I'm just like floating, and I'm looking around, and I'm floating in a rail car, but my body's like dangling there. And then that's where it hit me. It's like, oh my God, I'm dead. And as soon as I said or realized that I had died, a lot of people who go through a near-death experience, they don't realize that they actually died. They just go through the experience. They're not awakened enough. So when I realized that I died, it wasn't like a sadness or anything. Excuse me. It wasn't a sadness or anything. It was like an expansive moment, one of the most expansive moments that I've ever had. And I'm going, wow, this is what it is to be alive. So and I'm going, wait a second, I just died, but now I know what it is to feel alive, in physical form. Although I didn't have physical form, I still had a consciousness or an identity that I had a physical form. And then I looked at my limited self, the version of who we think we are, the pain, the abuse patterns, the lack, the sacrifices that we do. And I go, God, that's a lot of, that's a lot of limitations. That's a lot of burden. And I go, and I looked at myself, hanging there by my jaw, and I'm going, that's only 1% of who I really was. That's the thing that I remember. I'm going, I'm living only 1% of who I was in physical form. And then it's just like, I forgot about the physical form. And then I literally transcended. I could feel me going through the rail car, just like they do in movies, when ghosts walk through walls and stuff. I walked through, I floated through the rail car and then into this brilliant light. So I'm sure you've heard many stories, on Jeffrey's show, where people go into the tunnel of light and so on. That tunnel of light is literally, it's layers of, say, consciousness that you go through to bring you back into, say, it clears you of, say, distorted memories that you, say, have, say, attuned to or think that is real. So by the time you graduate, it's a graduation, say, level. There's about 13 levels there. So you graduate out of there, and then you become, say, a complete spirit again. So that's what the tunnel of light is about. Most people who have near-death experiences, they would see their loved ones or their dogs or whatever welcoming them in, into that space, or welcome them. It's like, hey, this is, you're going to go through this college, so to speak, to graduate into a higher, say, level being. I transcended. I didn't see any loved ones or anything. I transcended into the layer, which is about 4 or 5 layers up, by the way. I transcended into that layer where you start to have a life review. So a lot of times this is where, say, other people would see, say, Jesus, or if you're, a Buddhist faith, you might see a different version of, say, Buddha, or again, if you're Christian and believe Catholic and so on, you would say Jesus in front of you, or, Saint Michael or whatever. Again, it's dependent on who, what you believed in. The importance of that that I want to bring out is, again, you're still attached to your physical beliefs. And that's why it represents itself. So it's like it's the things that you experience in those levels, although, say, you're disconnected, is, again, based on, say, what you believed in or what you thought was real in physical form. So as you graduate to higher levels, you get to see a pure version, say, of those forms. But again, nobody ever comes back into real life. And so that secret is lost, let's say. Anyway, so the life review that a lot of people talk about, so for me, it was a life relive. So what's the difference? A life review, again, is a lot of times, there's somebody else sitting across, and, they're like checking off. It's like, you did this good, you did this good, you did this good. Over here, I don't know what the hell happened here, but, we got to knock off some points, right? Here, and then we tally up the score, and then, like, we send you off either up, or down. It's nothing like that at all, guys. I've actually, what it is like, you relive your life as an awakened, say, being. Okay, not, say, not a distorted being, or not understanding what life is about. So what you do is you go from the time of birth, or I went through the time of birth up to age about 22. That's when I died. Up to that moment of death, for me, and you relive it as a conscious being, reliving your life. So it's not like you're reviewing it, although you might think so, but you actually go through 22 years within, say, a mere few seconds, even if at that. But you actually relive all those moments of you in real time, by the way, although it feels like it's only just a few seconds. And this is where this is very important, because this is the work that I do. I start to realize, it's like, wait a second, I just relived 22 years of my life in just a few seconds. I was conscious of that. Okay. And I'm going, how did I do that? Because everything is so real. Again, and your dream states do that as well, right? So again, time gets, say, distorted or disoriented. Time gets compressed, although it feels the same length of time. So in this scenario, though, a life relive is that you go, oh, that's why this happened, that's why that happened. I can understand why, again, you start to see why stuff happened, so you can grow and expand from those experiences. But when we're living them, we're seeing them from tunnel vision, and it's like, and then we start to think, it's like, God, I made that mistake. So there is no I should have's or I could have's or anything like that. It's not like, oh God, I married the wrong person. This has happened to me. I got into this accident. Now I'm crippled, or whatever it is, or somebody died close to me. It's like, and it ruined my whole life. It's nothing like that at all. It's just like, oh, that's what happened, and I can grow and expand from whatever experience that was there. So that's what that life relive is. And it was quite amazing because then I understood why I had the life that I did, at a very high level, and it's like, wow, that's really cool. Now I understand. And I started to heal, because that's what real healing is. It's like when you start to understand the experiences that you go through and why they're there for you, and then you grow and expand from them instead of repeating them. So when I got towards the end of that life, by the way, it was very expansive, and it's like, wow, I want to stay here, because that's what it's like, it felt so great, and it felt so well. I was limitless. I was feeling the 99% of who we all are, not the 1% version of who we live. So and then it's like this voice comes into you, and it's like, well, that's really great, but you can stay here. Of course you can stay here, but you can also go back into your life again. And it's not like a choice. It's not really a choice. They literally, as they say, it's like, you can stay here or you can go back, and they literally feel like you get pushed into your body again. So it's like, yeah, you can stay here, but poof, you're gone. So again, it's not a choice, guys, that we have, although it seems like they give you a choice. And then this is where the pain came in. It's like, literally, you feel the pain, especially with my jaw. And then the pain was so excruciating, I blacked out. And then the next thing, I fell to the floor and then blacked out, which was about, again, 10 feet high. And then the next thing I knew, I was awake again in the hospital with my jaws wired shut. And I was euphoric, because it was the coolest thing ever. There was I was like, damn, what happened? It was just like going, whoa, I want to go back, because it was so unbelievably beautiful, and everything made sense. Everything was of logic there, of higher logic. Over here, things don't make sense. There's always exceptions to the rule. We don't know who we are, what we do, and all that. At that level where I was, it's like, damn, I knew who I was. I knew my potential, so I wanted to go back. And this is where some people who've had near deaths, they get kind of depressed and so on like that, because they see the beauty, they see the logic at that level. They don't see all that, all the bullshit and all that stuff that doesn't make, it doesn't make sense in this reality, or should make sense. So my gifts started to come in. I got very much more intuitive. I could see future vision for people. It helped me accelerate my business. So fast forward into my second near death. By then, I was married, I had kids, things of life that we do, and successful. But then there was a huge piece missing. It's like, yeah, I have the boats, I have, the nice house and all that, but it's like, God, there's just something missing. It's like, what's missing? Well, that question, I think, was the key factor of grooming me again to have a second near-death experience. And in this second near-death experience, it was a drowning accident. We were on a cruise ship, and I'm not going to get into the details. You can go through the details, at massajati.com. But the highlights was that, again, I was groomed, to have this near-death experience. And it was quite amazing. So it was a rafting experience where we go down in Belize through the jungle, and, and just see the beauty of the jungle. But the key was that the rivers in Belize are, basically, they have a lot of cenotes, or basically holes in the river that from volcanic action and so on. So there's a lot of, say, cenotes, or again, just so we're in a river. Oh, and before we get into the river, it just so happens that the rafting trip, for some reason, didn't have a life jacket. All the life jackets ran out. So I'm thinking to myself, it's like, well, I'm a strong swimmer. I was a strong swimmer in high school and so on. I'm good. I've got the inner tube. So I'll be good with that. But again, is that a coincidence, or why did the life, no more life jackets, right? And we get into, we get to the shore of the river, and the guide goes, okay, guys, the river is a little fast, because of this rainy season. It's faster than normal, so we have to stick together. together, because if you go into other tributaries, you might like go over a waterfall, or you might get, say, sucked into, say, one of these cenotes. Again, a cenotes, what we saw is like, they have huge rocks right in the middle of the river, and then there's a big hole, a little bigger than a manhole cover, that you see on the street, and basically just water pouring into the bowels of the earth. So basically, the old lava tubes that was there. So we all interconnect. There's about 3-4 rafts. My wife at the time, my kids, and my boys, and then all of a sudden we're all interconnected. And as soon as we get into the flow of the river, somehow I had to do something. So I disconnected, and that's where, again, it was all, say, a coincidence, or, again, created for me. Oh, even before that, by the way, as I was getting into the inner tube or getting ready, for some reason, I kept checking and double checking my kids' life jackets. It's like triple checking, quadruple check my kids, making sure everything was okay, because it felt something weird. I also noticed that the jungle was just got deathly quiet, like just like in a movie scene, where music comes on. There was no music, but the wind stopped, bird noises, animal noises, all the stuff that you hear, just like dead silence. It was like an eerie silence, and I'm going, that's really peculiar. I'm going, wow. And everything was really still. So again, the process started for me even before I had the near death. Again, groomed. So we went into the river, and somehow my feet got unlatched from everybody else's. And then we went, one way. My wife at the time and one of the kids, or two of the kids, went one way, and then we just split off. I happened to go down again into a cenotes, and we got sucked right in. So within about, say, 3-4 minutes of being on the river, literally I got sucked in. I pushed away my kids, so they were okay, and then my inner tube got pulled in, and I got the water pressure was so strong that I got vortex, or just vacuumed out of my inner tube and into this tunnel, again, a lava tube. And I got sucked into the bowels of the earth. According to my wife, I was probably gone for like maybe 8 minutes, around there. So that's a long time to be underwater. And obviously, I can't hold hold my breath that long. So it's like I started to see that, what I was seeing from my experience is like the hole that I got sucked into, when you're close up, it's wide, and it got darker and darker, and the hole got thinner and thinner. Going, oh God, I'm going deep inside. And this is where I started to realize that, gosh, I'm dying, I'm going to die, and nobody's ever going to find me. So it's like you start to say goodbye to your loved ones, and it's like, gosh, dang, I never thought I'd, die this way. And then that's where I split out of my body, and it felt really familiar. It's like, oh gosh, I'm back. So it was tragic for a brief second, but then it's like, oh, I'm back into my 99%. And I could see my body float away, deeper and deeper into, the bowels of the earth. But for me, I felt myself going through, the rock, and then into the river. So I could feel the freshness of the water. I could still say experience or feel it, because you don't have to have a body to experience this reality. Phantom limbs, I got my tips of my fingers cut off, where phantom limb people feel like you can still scratch that leg that was cut off. It's kind of like that. So I could still feel the coolness of the water, and then out of the water, and then I transcended into a no time zone. And so this time I feel like me going through the tunnel, but I went through the process of going through the, I could kind of stop at the layer of like reliving your life and so on like that. I kind of knew what was going on, but then it's like I plopped out the other edge, the other side. So basically I graduated on that second near death. So what does that mean? When you graduate, you're not supposed to come back. Somehow somehow, for some reason, I managed to peek behind the curtain of what really happens on the other side. And this is where, I looked around and then I go, whoa, this is the coolest thing. So literally imagine yourself plopping out of this, like these layers, and poof, you're into another consciousness, kind of like a wormhole, right? You go into this other consciousness, and I look around and I'm going, whoa, I'm in a no time zone. And I realized that all possibilities that could ever happen to me, or all possibilities that could be, existed in this reality at one time. If I wanted to go to France, for example, and I did, I don't know why France, but I've never been there, but I wanted to go to France. And it's like, whoo, poof, I was vortexed into, say, a feeling of being in France. It was amazing. Or, like pure love, because that's what I was like, really craving, pure love. I could feel the pure raw love, nothing that you could ever imagine or experience in physical form, because that at that level of love, and it's, again, raw love, it's just so pure and blissful. Your body couldn't handle the magnitude of light. You would literally, say, explode from that much love. So it was quite amazing. But then something else happened where I started to, say, disintegrate even more. At that level, I still had a consciousness, still a consciousness or an identity of physical human form. That's not your natural spirit shape, by the way. Your spirit has no form. It has no limitations. So I transcended into even higher levels. So this is where no time or no space exists. At that level, I was just basically a limitless being, a universe of my own. And that's what it felt like, a universe. And it was just so blissful. And since there's no time and space, although eons could pass by, you're so peaceful and you're so in the moment. Again, there's no time. So it's not like you get bored or anything like that. You're just like in a bliss state all the time. And this is where you have access, or I got granted access to what I call a beautiful blue space, because in that is a beautiful blue, like a deep ocean blue. And in that realm, it's like, wow, I have access to all the knowledge that ever was, is, and shall be. Because again, there's no time involved, right? You have access to that. So it's kind of like a mainframe computer, or a database, universal database, as I call it. And then I blacked out. There was no voice or anything. I just blacked out. And then I don't know how long I was there, because it could be eons, because time changes, right? Just like a lot, like Interstellar. If you see the movie Interstellar and movies like that, time, you get time distortion and so on. So I was there for eons, from what I felt. But anyway, I blacked out and I came to into my physical form, into my body, and I'm looking, and I came to, and I was 100 yards above river, which is kind of amazing to me, because I'm looking at the inner tube that's still stuck. It's still, because it couldn't go into the hole because it's too big. It was still stuck, and I'm going, I'm 100 yards above river. It's like, how the heaven did that happen? How did I get 100 yards above river? If I was getting pulled, I would be downriver or something. But obviously some divine experience came through where I landed on a quieter, say, area of the river as well. I was just sitting there peaceful, and I'm going, wow, this is really blissful. So my hands, my fingers, my fingernails were torn off because I was trying to crawl back up, in the tunnel. My back, was bloody and all that. Again, from holding myself. Other than that, it was a really blissful state. And this is where my ability started to come in. This is where I start to read people. This is where I start to understand, say, the mechanics, because that's what I wanted to know. I wanted to understand the mechanics of how this reality works. So my gifts are not only seeing how you operate and run. I actually can edit. So I can actually see your past, present, and future, and then edit the possibilities for you by changing the frequency, or again, the consciousness, or in this the dimension of time and space that you exist. And we can talk about more about that later. So I did that for about, I went through the dark times. It took me about 3-4 years of realizing who I really was, or transitioning from that 1% of my limited being into the limitless being that I experienced, in an out of body form. So literally, I was transitioning into a higher level being, again, transforming from the 1% of who we think we are into more of using that, say, possibility or power, which was really cool. And this is where, again, I've helped hundreds of thousands of client sessions, people just like transforming their lives, what looks like miracles. Again, there's a lot of science behind it. So I did that for 10 years. And just because of time. So the latest one, again, a third near death, basically allowed me to escalate to even higher levels of understanding of how this reality works. So basically explaining the physics of life. Okay. And so when that near death, this was in Peru. I don't know what happened, but I got ill. It could be like elevation sickness and so on. That could be part of it. But I think it was something more because, I was telling Faye, my wife, that I'm going, we're going to Peru and something big is going to happen. And I thought it was going to be something. Well, it was exciting, but you don't have a clue, because if you go, shit, I'm going to die in Peru, you're not going to go, right? So I didn't know what was going to happen. And so we went there and I had a near death. For some reason, the potassium levels in my body were way below threshold. And literally every muscle couldn't function. My heart couldn't function. So I was rushed to the emergency room and I could see my son holding me down and I was floating above my body. And then I blacked out. I don't know what happened after that. And I don't know how long I was out, but when I came back in, I felt really cool. I felt really fine. Some of the key points there on that third near death is that when they scanned my brain, they had 2 scans. It was much like somebody who had just died. And then 20 minutes later, they scanned me again. Maybe I saw, maybe they saw movement in me and all that. And my brain was like pristine, like of a younger, not a 61-year-old, but a very younger version of me. So I'm going, they were perplexed on how that happened. It's like, how can you go from a scan of like a mushy brain to something that was like pristine? So things like that, kind of proved to me that, again, a physical rendition of, say, having another near-death experience outside of floating above my body and watching my son like literally hold me down. Anyway, it was so. And when I explain these, it's you're in moments of no time. So it's like the death that happened to me 40 years ago. That's like real, because there is no time. It feels like yesterday. So anyway, so I got out of the hospital, and that was the most, and from then, my body's like really shifting, so, I've gone to the heart doctors and all that, and they look at my heart and they go, gosh, your heart is of a, like a 25-year-old. So literally, I'm at a level where we can genetically, what I would call it, say genetic, say transformation into a higher version. Some of you might say you're turning into a crystalline rather than a carbon-based version. I'm like 61 going on 62. Again, I look younger than ever before. So those are the possibilities, again, of this third near death that I had. Again, my abilities more precise than ever. I can read anybody. I can scan anybody, dead or alive. If you like, Jeffrey, if you tell me it's like, oh, I have a sister, I can just read their pattern like right away. I don't need to know their name, I don't need to see their picture when they were born or anything like that. I can just scan them just like that and get their whole storyline. Again, it's very different than, say, psychic abilities. So and this is where XI has grown, or becoming exponentially intelligent, where you come to an intelligence level of your higher being of who you are, not the limited version of who you are. So,
Mas, thank you for sharing your experiences
yeah.
with us. I know you use the word groomed, that you were groomed for your NDEs, but do you think that you planned these pre-birth?
Possibly, yes. Absolutely. Yeah, because it's not, let's just say it's not my first pony show or merry-go-round or whatever they call it. It's not my first show. I've probably done that, and it's like, oh, having a near-death experience is really one of the fastest ways to catapult yourself to, say, higher levels of consciousness. So yes, they were, say, planned. And everything fell into place the way they should for me to have those near-death experiences. So definitely at a higher order. Yes, I probably plan that out so I can escalate to higher levels rapidly. By the way, that doesn't mean that you should have a near death, because you can't plan a near death, guys. You can't plan it consciously. Okay, so I'm not saying, yeah, go crazy and try to get hit by a car and stuff. It doesn't work that way. You have to plan it at a much, much higher level where everything is orchestrated in perfection. So, because if you go a little too far, you're not going to come back. So again, I'm not stressing that you should have your death. By the way, the experiences that I've had, and this is what I teach people, is that you can learn from my near-death experiences. People who've had near-death experiences, I can say, help them recreate their near-death experiences so they understand it, or they get groomed, although it's happened in the past for them. Because that moment of time is still open for you, because you're out of time, which again allows for great learning to happen, even if it happened in the past for you. So
A lot of my guests that have had near-death experiences will say that we come here to learn stuff, like this is an earth school. The problem for me is that we come here and we're supposed to learn stuff, but we come here forgetting what we're supposed to learn. Why do you think that is?
Yeah, absolutely. Actually, you already know what you're capable of. You already know that. And when you're a young child, you feel like limitless. It's not because you're a young child and you don't know the ways of the world, because you're not ingrained in time and space. So you're not here to learn. You're here to remember the potentiality that you are. And the purpose of why you're here, by the way, is again not to experience things or not to learn things or anything like that. I know it sounds, but it's like, how do I become, or how do I manipulate and control time and space to allow me to, say, render my purest possible version of who I am? Basically, how do I walk here on earth in spirit form and still have a physical body? That's your purpose in life. So again, you're not here to, you're not here in sin. You're not here to, learn from past mistakes or karma or anything like that. Because if you were an awakened spirit, you'd be all possibilities. You would know why things happen. But the reason, like you were saying, Jeffrey, is that, we forget who we are. The reason why we forget is because to render this body in physical form and to have, say, spatial referencing or like referencing of time and space, we would have to create filters. So for example, if our light shines through, and then this is the projector, or this stage of life or reality that we call life, is the screen, right, that we, say, reflect our light upon. We would have to filter ourselves or dumb ourselves down to understand or forget the power that we are, for the magic trick of time and space to work upon us, so we can create a body that's rendered in time and space. Make sense to you? So that's why. So in a sense, what a near death does is, like, it eliminates the filters that we've created to create ourselves here in physical form.
I'm just going to say this. I mean, a lot of times when I talk to NDE guests, the internet connection starts going crazy. Could it be coincidence? Yes. Or could it be that we're just getting into deep stuff and now it's really messing with the internet? So I'm just kind of wanted to pause for a moment, just kind of let it try to reset itself.
Okay. That does happen quite a bit. Even listening to my NDE, a lot of your, even if it's recorded, Jeffrey, a lot of your listeners will start to transform, because that's what NDEs are for. So literally my presence literally will work on you to help you awaken to a higher version, especially if you've had NDEs, because that's what you're searching for. Again, how do I eliminate all those filters and still stay here? And this is where healing happens. This is where success happens. That's where abundance happens. So again, the frequencies are quite powerful.
One thing that I love that you brought, and I've never heard of it before, but I think it makes a lot of sense, and that is calling us here limited self. Because a lot of times we talk about the higher self, and I kind of like to use the word complete self. And so that completely matches it to me, that being here is the limited self.
Absolutely. Absolutely. You've got your limited self here. And I wish I had a sketch better, but you've got your limited self creating the version that you think you are, the abuse patterns, how you grew up, and, success patterns and all that stuff. Those are all filters, by the way. Your limitless self is up here. So if you transcend those filters, again, those things that you think you are not you. They're literally just filters. They're kind of like clothes, right? If you wear a certain type of clothes, people will look at you differently, right? So again, they're just like renderings or clothes, or I call them as filters or programs. So if you transcend those, you move away from the limited version that you've created yourself, or you've genetically inherited from your parents. And this is where people can cure themselves of the crazy, say, diseases or health issues. This is where you don't have to age, because aging, for example, is a filter that society has come or conditioned to. You don't have to age like society. You don't have to age like your parents. You don't have to look like your parents, or so on. Those things can change for you once you understand your limitless self is creating this limited version through filters. So it separates the thing that you think you are, the problems that you think you are, from the version that you really are. And that's a huge change. And this is where it goes beyond psychology and all that, because the psychology in your brain is down here with all the filters above. Your limitless self is up here. So hey, why don't we just plop you here and get rid of all these filters? And then you don't run from those filters. And this is where you can change really fast, like decades of, transformations in like maybe a 10-minute session or something. So
I believe it was during your first NDE that even though you felt like there was a choice, there wasn't a choice, and you were pushed back into your body.
Right.
Who are the beings that pushed you back, in your opinion?
Yeah, that's a really good question. They're higher level beings. We all have, say, groups, that we, say, connect with, or watchers. Some of your audiences, will connect to groups. But as you ascend higher and higher, the groups get bigger and bigger. So it could be a collective consciousness that, say, morphs into, say, a personality that you would hear. If that makes sense to you. I think it's more of that. So it's like all the possibilities that humans could be, or again, a collective consciousness, or that thing to me that, hey, well, it's not your time, and you get pushed back. And so they're not like, say, physical beings, or they could have been, I guess, that have transcended, but more of a collective consciousness. Because when you get into those higher, they don't have like separate identities, so to speak. It's more, again, consciousness, state of being.
After this incarnation, do you think you're coming back, or do you think you're going somewhere else, like another world?
Well, this is the hopping place, Jeffrey. This is where, if you believe in aliens, or or if you believe in aliens, to me are like just higher levels of consciousness. They're the same exact spirit as you and I, but they haven't, say, that consciousness that exists in another, say, time space, say, definition. Like we live in a 24-hour, say, time space definition. They live in another, say, consciousness where time and space are different. In that realm, they haven't figured out, say, density, or they haven't figured out, say, how to create those in solid form. So that's why they might feel more intelligent and so on. But again, if we were at that level, here we'd just be as intelligent, but we have all these filters. So this is the place to be, because this is a reflection. No other realm or consciousness has the ability to say reflect the immaculate possibilities that you are, as clear as you are, as clear as you can be. So in all the other realms, the mirror of reflection is very, say, fuzzy. It's not as solid, it's not as tangible, or you can't feel it. In this realm, you see the beauty, you can see the grace. Most people unfortunately see the disharmony. But if you're awakened, you go, whoa, this is really cool. I can actually see a reflection of how grand I am. That's why you're here in physical form. If you've ever wondered why did you get created, or why did God create you in this form, in this hell? And I'm going through all this stuff so you can understand the beauty that you are, as soon as you get rid of all the, say, the distortions that, or the filters that have created you here. So it's actually a blessing. So will I come back again? I probably will, but at a much, much higher level, to bring in, say, more consciousness or more awakening, so we can really have fun in this playground in physical form and see the grandness and again the beauty of who we are. When we're here up here, since there is no time and space, we can't reflect, or we can't see our own beauty. So we've created time and space to come down here and go, gosh, I'm really that great. And we're all that great, by the way. It's not just me, but it's everybody. So in the near future, everybody will go, damn, it's in right now, we're living in a space of like, bandage, or fixing ourselves, and all that stuff, healing. In the future, we're going to be more into expansion, where it's like, I know who I am. We all know who we are as a population. And it's like, what are the possibilities of what we can create now? So, and this is the transition that the world is going through, of like limited possibilities, or always trying to fix ourselves, so to speak, and it's never ending, into a possibility of, oh gosh, I'm really solid. I know who I am at a higher level. And what can we have fun? How can we say, adventure in time and space, to see the possibilities of what we can do here.
So I think what you're saying is perhaps this is the ultimate place to be. The only problem is, to be here, you have to go through all these filters.
Yep. To create yourself. So the key, and what we do is like, let's help you remove all these filters and still help you render yourself here in physical form. And again, this is where you get rid of aging, because that's a filter. This is where you get rid of illness, because that's a filter. And all that stuff that we think humans need to be, we don't need that. You can render human in perfect form from here. So instead of reflecting your life, most people reflect, if it was like layers of consciousness, Jeffrey, most people reflect their light from, say, the lowest layer into, say, the body that you see. What I'm saying is basically, let's remove all these filters, and you reflect your light from a higher level of consciousness, and you can and then still create your sense of self here. So you understand your, say, limitless possibilities, and you can, say, experience it in physical form. That's your whole journey in life, or if you've ever wondered why you're here in life, is so you can experience yourself in limitless form in the physical.
I thought the filters were put in place here because of the construct of time and space.
Yep.
But what you're saying is that it's not time and space. That's just some construct within our own belief system.
Right. No, you're absolutely true. So the first main filter, so you have your pure light or timeless space, and then the first main filter is like time and space, how time and space works again in this reality. The next filter down would be, the principles of the universe, like electromagnetism and chemicals and all, how bonding works, atoms work, and all that stuff, and so on and so on and so on. So those are constructs that, obviously we can't transcend, otherwise we couldn't create ourselves. But then we have a human construct, or a human filter. And over time, again, because we're humans, animals do it differently, but because we're humans, what we do is we don't evolve. We don't go to the next generation isn't a better version of the previous generation. Basically, the next generation is accumulated total of what the previous generation went through. So that human filter is gotten distorted over time. That makes sense to you? And that's why today's world, we have so many problems. It's not like we need better technology or we need better education or we need more laws or we need more whatever. We just need to purify that filter again. In nature, what happens is that, say, it's like the, species goes through, say, starvation or famine or disease. The genetics of that, say, species learns. So whoever survived to carry on the generation survived, right? Survived that famine. And then the best part of, say, the genetics of that species transcends into that next generation. Since humans have free will, we get to choose everything about us. And then, so what we do is like, dad had heart disease, great-grandfather, great-great-grandfather had heart issues for some reason, right? Or again, you can look it up. People who have gone through, say, war or famine, so to speak, 5 generations down, the generation downline, they're experiencing somebody who've gone through famine. So how does that work? Or they're experiencing the PTSD of war. Again, although 5, 6, 7 generations down, they've never seen war. So again, humans carry all the baggage, not just the survival mechanism. And that's where the genetics kind of go awry on humans. Nature is in its perfection. It's always evolving. Humans are kind of flatlining as far as evolution goes. So although the consciousness is there for us to evolve, just like nature, catch up to nature.
Do you think in our ancient past we had these abilities that you're now teaching, like in ancient Egypt and possibly the places that may have existed like Atlantis and Lemuria that are now gone, and
Oh,
somehow we
absolutely.
lost that ability?
Yes. So here's the difference. And I'm actually going to do a lecture series on that, on how time and space works. Basically, what happens is that it's about consciousness, okay, and then time. So at the lower levels, or at this level, let's just call it 0 level consciousness. Time is constant, right? It ticks. In this case, again, a 24-hour clock. At the higher levels of consciousness, right? Time is very different. But again, we need filters to render ourselves. Again, all these filters to, again, create density. So back in the day, and this is where like ancient cities are now being being unearthed and so on. And I'll just talk about that in just a second. But so what happens is that, and again, I wish I had a drawing pad, but you have layers of consciousness, okay? And as time goes by, these layers keep dropping down. So a new version of consciousness is always playing. It's kind of like a record player. The next record plays. Back in the day, you had a stack of records. Does that make sense to you? And then that record ends. So we're at the end of this record or the end of this time. And then a new record starts playing. So again, a new consciousness is coming in. So and again, so we're all evolving. Does that make sense so far?
Mm-hmm.
How just consciousness just keeps updating and upgrading and so on. So you've got that, but the deal. So ancient civilizations or high level beings and all that stuff were here on Earth, but they were at a different level of consciousness. They were, say, at a level of consciousness, say 100. Just so we're at level 0, their level consciousness of 100, but they didn't have all these other filters, so they could still render themselves, but not as, say, distinctly as we could. That makes sense. And that's why we have amazing artifacts. Or like, how did they drill these holes that are so perfect? How did these rocks get cut so precisely? What kind of technology, what kind of advanced technology did they have in the past? But again, the deal is that consciousness level was here projecting itself on Earth. Okay. So over time, again, consciousness is dropping down, time is going forward. So what happens is that, and this is what we're starting to see, is that we're starting. So this is a level 100 consciousness, okay? And it's coming down. It's like cycling down, and then time is coming. So what happens is that level 100 consciousness is now playing at this level. It's at your, at this reality. And then this is where we start to see or and this is a lot where a lot of geologists are finding artifacts or new cities where we've never seen them before. The reason why we've never seen them before is because you couldn't see them because that level of consciousness hasn't existed yet in this realm. Does that make sense to you? So if you look at all the ancient civilizations or all the ancient cities or all the advanced cities that are coming out, or archaeologists are finding out about them, and they've always been there. I mean, the latest one was a couple of months ago, was in India, in a sprawling city, and it's like, oh, archaeologists just unearthed this huge city, that was covered, and it's like, why didn't they see it before? Because we couldn't see it, because we were resonating at a different level of frequencies. So now that consciousness is coming in. So the intelligence that they had at a level 100 to create all those great technologies back then, we're going to have access to that now. And so our technological discoveries or inventions are going to skyrocket because of that in the near future. Hopefully that all made sense. If it didn't, I'm going to do a more technical description on how, again, the past was the future, and the future could have been the past.
Some of my guests during their NDE will go to a place that we kind of collectively call the black void. It's a black place. It's commonly described as velvety. Do you know what that is?
Yeah. So the black void, or what, like physicists might call black, there's a difference. There's black matter and black dark matter
or something.
Yeah, dark energy. Yeah. So one is a physical space, but what they go into is, say, they go past beyond time and space, and since they have no reference point beyond time and space, they wouldn't understand what it is. I've actually transcended into that space, so that's where I get the knowledge. So that is a space of, again, no, it's like complete no time, complete no space. It's just nothingness. But when you're in nothingness, it's black, because you'd have to have, say, density or time and space to create light. So in your original form, your spirit is not of brilliance. Your spirit is dark matter, or a black hole, basically, because you're void of anything. But when you're void like that, and this is what basically I was experiencing, all possibilities, but I was conscious at that level. So your guests and even you might be experiencing like what you went into that black void. Basically, you went into so deep that there was no, say, identity or reference points of who you were, because you were pure spirit. So your pure spirit is, again, just basically darkness, the way we would see it. But the key is, when you're not into that nothingness, it feels velvety, because that's the love and all that stuff that you're feeling, again, in physical form. When you're nothing, you are everything, because there's no judgment, there's no filters, again. So you are your limitless self in that dark matter. Does that make sense to you? The reason why we say spirits as brilliance is because at a high level, or those individuals who say, oh, I saw spirit, and they're just brilliance of light. Yes, that's true. And that's the filter that we talked about of time and space. When you're here, again, it's just dark. There's nothing here. Although, again, you have all possibilities, but those possibilities can't exist one at a time. So, but when you transcend or shine your, say, presence, I call this the origin of frequencies. When you shine your possibilities through the filter of what we call space and time, this is where you see a brilliance of light. And white light is basically all the colors or all the possibilities of you. So at that level, this is why you see spirit as brilliance of light. If that makes sense to you, because at that level, there is no filter, and then all possibilities that you're just showing yourself, because in this reality, you would say render yourself as all possibilities that you could be. So that's why spirit is brilliance or bright light. And then we have filters to tone us down into physical form. So it all goes back. So that black void is literally you in your limitless self. but you didn't have a reference point because you're still existing here as a conscious being. Does that make sense? You're still living in some form to understand that you say exited timeless space. And that's the difference between, again, my near death. I literally say gravitated into that space. My consciousness gravitated into that space. Most people, they see themselves here and then they experience that space.
So what you've created is called exponential intelligence. And
Yes.
what that is helping people remove those filters. Is that correct?
Yes. It's literally, it's turning into a physics, another form of physics, or how this reality works. So it's, in a nutshell, it's literally a handbook on how to be your best possible version of what you could be. Again, transforming from the limited to the limitless. So in a physics version, you would have Newtonian physics, for example, which explains, like density and the bigger objects of the world, right? And then they started studying or learning about that. And then they started to see that there was another, say, reality or another universe that like controlled, the physics of the bigger objects. And they call that the quantum realm, right? Or like the minute particles. Well, XI, or exponential intelligence physics, basically, so what I've done, or what I've experienced, is like, gosh, we understand the quantum realm, and this is what scientists are getting into, by the way. This is where the Webb telescope, the new, I forgot the
James Webb telescope.
yeah, the James Webb telescope is like experiencing, or like showing us, is like, wait a second, there's a deeper version than the quantum field that we can go into. And that's the bridge between the time-bound self, the limited self, and the timeless self. So we've got the consciousness or the intelligence to start to see that, hey, there's a bigger version. And again, so it's the bridge. So XI is literally the bridge between the timeless version of who we are, or you might call it your spirit, I call it your limitless self, and the time-bound version of who we are. So if you're interested in that, quantum neurobiology or quantum neurophysics is literally what I do, but at a much, much higher level because of the near-death experiences on that.
Are you teaching information or are you helping people experience something?
Both. I help individuals heal themselves. Again, I awaken or activate their natural healing abilities. So, and healing is not just physical healing, emotional healing, business healing, or like financial healing, because we're not supposed to be in this world that is, say, deprecated, basically, or in lack. This reality, if you were an awakened being, if you were an awakened being, would you be in any form of lack? Would you be in any form of pain? Would you be your brilliance? Okay. So the only thing that's stopping you from, again, creating that brilliance in physical form is, again, those filters or realities. So what I do is I help you activate your natural healing self, again, helping you ascend to a higher level, and then you naturally heal. And then for those people who are, say, healed or fixed, they want to expand, right? They want to know their possibilities, or they want to know the new, say, the new business paradigm that's coming. I have a lot of high-level CEOs that I work with, or companies that, it's like, we want to create more, products that are more, environmentally safe or greener and all that stuff. So they come to me, or, they want to have a different version of, like, Mas, I've sacrificed myself. I've got all the money that, I can buy anything that I need, but I'm still not happy. So for those people, I start teaching how to do what I do, because we all have these abilities, by the way. It's not just me. And then there are people who are natural, who gravitate to healing people or helping people. So I help, I teach that as well.
Do you think that the feeling of unhappiness or the feeling that you're missing something is due to not knowing and living your life purpose?
Yes, absolutely. But most people think that their life purpose is helping people. Say, like, if I help people, like a lot of your audience, just tapping into them. It's like, if I help people, or if I help more people, then I'm living my self purpose, and then I'll be happy, or I'll be happy when I die. It doesn't really work that way. Your life purpose, and everybody's life purpose, is literally about how do I stay here in physical form and be my limitless self? So figuring out how time and space works, literally, that's your life purpose. But if you understand that concept, your abundance, helping others in a proper way, and just for your group, by the way, your listeners, again, they're beautiful people, they're helpers, but the way they help, Jeffrey, is like they burden themselves. So basically what their equation to life is like, the more people I help, or basically what they're saying is the more people I burden myself with, because basically you're pulling their burdens onto you, the better off I'll be. It doesn't work that way. The way you help is literally you shine your brilliance of who you are, and then you help by helping those people remember. It's like, so by helping those people remember that they're brilliant too. So you're not carrying anybody's baggage, if that makes sense. I don't know why that came in, but a lot of your people are helpers. So that's your purpose in life, again, is to shine your brilliance, and then it helps all the other people around go, oh, I remember who I am because you're shining your brilliance. I'm that brilliant too. But most people, when they help, is like, oh, let me carry your burdens. And then those people that you just helped create more burdens because you didn't teach them literally how to fish. You just gave them a fish, so to speak, or basically you took all their burdens, and they'll just create more. And it's become a pandemic that's really burdening society, and that's why more and more people are going, I don't want to help people anymore. How many times have you all helped people, and it's like you get sick of it because you get burdened by them. It's like they want more of a handout, they want more of this, they want more of that. It's like that's not helping them. So this is true help, and that's what we're coming into.
If people want to ask you questions or find out more about you, is it best to reach you on your website?
Yeah, they can go to massajady.com, MASSAJADY.com, or massajady.live. That's my YouTube channel. And we've got hundreds of titles. We do a show every Sunday in live where I can actually like scan you and see pinpoint exactly what's going on with you, and then help you edit that so you live, again, a limitless life. So that's the best place, massajady.live. You can, there's so many titles on why. It basically explains why life is the way it is and what you can do about it. And then also the podcast, XI podcast, Exponential Intelligence Podcast. There's a lot of free resources there, which I suggest that you take, because what I do is very different. It's not psychology or anything like that. So it's very new. It's all about frequencies, or changing your dimension and where you create yourself or render yourself in time and space. So most people, want to help or want to improve themselves here. It doesn't work. You have to change, again, the filters. So the free stuff, again, the podcasts, the Moss on Sundays, which is on YouTube, I would suggest doing those things so you understand it. And then, the website, massajady.com, that's where you can get into the 18 days where you can transform your life, in 18 days, literally. So.
Well, Moss, before we finish up, can you leave us with one last positive message?
Again, guys, you're not here to suffer or learn anything. You already know all the possibilities of what you could be. So again, if you're always seeking outside of yourself to find yourself, you'll never find yourself. Right? And that's what most people do. So what you want to do, again, is start to look inwards, and then start to, be strong enough and be honest with yourself. It's like, hey, I'm running these patterns, I'm running these abuse patterns. I'm running this pattern. I'm not wealthy, or I'm not happy, or whatever. And, you start to say the truth in you. And then as you do that, you start to shed away, and just note that those things aren't you. Those are just filters that your parents usually ran, and you just adopted that. So once you start to understand that, you can easily transform your life. And then you become that person that you've always known deep inside that you are.
Moss, thank you for that information, and thank you again for being my guest.
Thank you so much.
Thanks for watching the JeffMara podcast. I really appreciate you. Another way to show support is through YouTube memberships. And if you do, there are loyalty badges and other perks depending on your level of membership. All you need to do is click the join button underneath the video to find out more. Thank you for your support.